There we go. Can you just say something so we can double check? All right.
Can you hear this?
Yeah, that's
We're
going
good?
on.
All right.
That was
Should
weird. So, like, my Windows randomly decided to update earlier.
I?
And, like, it randomly decided to switch all the defaults.
Fun times.
Yeah.
All right. So just continue.
Oh, fuck. No, we're gonna go straight from the top. That's what we're gonna
Okay,
do.
we're going straight from the top. Thank God this
'Cause,
was like 30 seconds in.
Yeah, because I looked at that. I'm like, wait a minute.
Wait
All
a
that is fine. But anyways, I'm not gonna do like a rewind sound effect or anything like that.
Is that how it goes?
Something like that.
Professional.
Yeah, that was perfect. Alright, but anyways, hello everyone, and welcome back to Heroes Never Die, your one-stop spot for all things Overwatch. I am your host, Lee Druck, and tonight, on episode 181, we'll talk all about the latest in both Overwatch and Overwatch esports. It's been kind of a busy week for Overwatch on late-night TV. A lot of stuff going on behind the scenes in regards to Overwatch League as the first free agency window opens up, and all of that good stuff, so we'll let you know all of the latest movement on that front. And the gauntlet is underway with EU already being eliminated.
Suck it, EU.
All of that good stuff. But before we can get into the news and introduce you to my co-host, let me just quickly take a moment to thank everyone who is joining us tonight on Twitch for our live show. And of course, to thank all of our repeat listeners. So as you can tell, as always, I'm here with my co-host, Edinar. And Ed, it's happy to see the EU trend completely dropping the ball early in the gauntlet, unfortunately for my bracket, but that's okay, because it's all about bragging rights for NA over EU, which is always a good thing. But how's the past week been treating you?
It's been good. We've gotten a lot of information, lacking information. So, we got all these people who are free agents, might be team options, might be under contract, might be looking for a team, might not be looking for a team. So we don't know really what's going on. So you had all that. Let's see here. Yeah, the NFL this past week. We're 1 week closer to BlizzCon,
Right.
which should be a blast. I'm still waiting to hear what kind of crap band they have playing.
Did you check your county fair?
I did not check my local county fair. Did not. But it's been fun playing a lot of Sigma. Me and you went on a tear the other day in Mystery
That was
Heroes.
yesterday. What do you mean the other day?
That's the other day. Yeah, yesterday. That's the other day.
I mean, that's another day.
But yeah, we went we won all 9 games in one sitting.
Well, we kind of split it up. It wasn't technically one sit-in.
Well, yeah, in one night. So yeah, it went really well. How's your week been?
Exhausting, as you can tell, because I keep scratching my eyes. It's been good though. I didn't really stay up too late in regards to like the gauntlet yesterday, because I know that started. I know we were greatly looking forward to that. Waiting to see how Runaway and ATL Academy are going to do, since they're kind of like waiting in the winners bracket. But right now I'm just excited for the Switch release. I can't wait to play the game in a newer format, to check out all the, gyro controls. So I'm looking forward to seeing how overpowered certain characters are going to be, just because of that controller, scheme or mechanic, however you want to describe it. But, it's going to be a good week. I'm looking forward to the event release, which should drop on Tuesday, because I know the Switch release is either, Friday or Saturday this weekend. So, we'll see how many levels I knock out over the weekend going into our next show. We'll see if I get competitive ready by then or not. But, it's always fun, kind of, checking out something I'm familiar with, but just in an entirely new environment. So we'll see how that is going to compare to, say, like the other console experience I've had in the past.
Now, with the new event coming out, just because by the time we record next week, the event will be out. Like, it's coming out next week. It just is. what outside of Sigma getting us a skin, because that I think is a given.
Right.
Who else do you think is going to get a skin?
In regards to like legendary,
Legendary or epic? I mean, like, some of them are legendary, and some of the epic ones should be legendaries, and so on and so forth.
God, this is so hard to keep track of since we've had like multiple events at this point.
I mean, Moira's probably a safe bet.
I'd say probably Orisa would be one.
Yeah, Baptiste maybe. I'm thinking like new characters might get it to build some of their skin game.
Right. But the question is, will anything, try to outdo the Witch Mercy, which still kind of like holds down the reins ever since that release?
Does it?
For Halloween it does.
Really? Hammond? Come on. The pumpkin?
/ ornament.
/ ornament? The pumpkin's pretty good. Pumpkin's definitely up there. So, I mean, they're all crap compared to the Christmas skins. And that's really all that matters. So,
right.
But yeah, I'd say Sigma for sure. Baptiste probably. And then, I don't know. We won't get a Symmetra or Genji one because we got those with the BlizzCon virtual ticket.
Right.
So
for World of Warcraft, yeah.
We should start getting the teases probably in the next few days.
Or a few hours.
Who
knows? That would be our luck. But anyways,
right.
let's go ahead and jump into the news from this past week. But first up, there was a new listen that was leaked on Amazon. Here we go again. Starting again. About an upcoming Overwatch book, which is going to be centered around the hero of Numbani. So it looks like we're going to get some additional Orisa lore coming up, as well as Orisa's creator, with Effie. So the book is listed as number 1, which kind of suggests like there are going to be others down the line to kind of expand on the lore built around the game. But what's important to note is this is due to be published on May 5th of 2020 by Scholastic, who tend to specialize in children's books. So we're probably not going to be getting like any like super detailed novels on that front. But, it looks like this is going to be targeting the younger audience. But, when we're looking at the hero pool for Overwatch, when it comes to lore expansions, which heroes in particular are you wanting to see being brought in for, projects like this?
Can I say all?
Every single one.
Every single one. So here's the thing with all of this. I don't believe it's going to happen.
What, that we're going to have lore for everything? Or the fact that this book is going to happen?
That we're going to have lore for this.
Okay.
I mean, let's look at their track record. Right now, they're 0 for 1. Like, we were promised a lengthy comic book with lore 2 years ago. And that never happened. Now, what I can see them doing, since it is made by Scholastic and it is more of a children's book, I could see them, and Effie's in it, which is obviously a small child, I could see them making an Overwatch League children's book. And this not being like that much of a lore thing, more of just a children's book to try and get a younger audience or something like that. Because we are on Disney. Like, most of our matches are streamed on Disney as well, so it could, lead to a younger audience, which is generally a good thing. So I don't know, but if I had to pick one to get a backstory on, or to get more into, if I was to get like a full-on novel, I want Widowmaker.
Mm-hmm.
I think her lore is like how she became so cold, killed her own husband, like that
turn blue.
Turn blue. Like that would be something that could be a very dark. Blizzard, you literally employ Christy Golden,
right?
Who wrote some of the best Warcraft books out there. She has written some of my favorite Warcraft books outside of the Lich King one, which is by far and away my favorite Warcraft book of all time. But I mean, she writes Warcraft books. She wrote Star Wars books. I'm pretty sure Christy Golden could write some Overwatch books.
Yeah.
And she's on your payroll. Right now, she's writing jingles for the Hearthstone reveal ads. Her talents are better used elsewhere. So, and she can literally make up anything she wants because there's a loose lore out there.
Right.
Like, these people are connected through this. That's really all we know. So, I want a Widowmaker book or like something like that. I don't know. Who would you pick?
Ooh, I'm trying to think. I mean, like, I'm still waiting on more, like, Zenyatta or, like, Lucio lore, primarily. Or Symmetra would be another good one, but I feel like it needs to be, like, one of the staple characters who there's still a lot of unknowns with. Like, I would not be surprised if Mercy is going to be, like, one of the first ones.
Mm-hmm.
Just learning more about, like, her backstory in regards to, like, her, you know, kind of, like, being under her father's wings in regards to, like, his field work and kind of expanded on that.
What the hell she did to Reaper?
Yeah.
Like, that whole thing. I don't know. The Orisa book is just one of those things. If I had to pick the two least lore-driven characters in the game, Bastion is one. Orisa's probably two. Like, these are just two characters that I just don't.
The Bastion book is basically just dweet, and then it's just repeated like 20,000 times.
Yeah, like, the Orisa and Bastion are just lore that I don't really care about at all. So, there's so many more options. I mean...
So you just don't like robots.
Well, Winston and Hammond... So, Winston and Hammond legit grew up on the fucking moon.
Right.
And escaped the moon. They escaped the moon. And we're like, no. We want to talk about this little girl who built the robot.
Basically. Well,
so,
I'm sure we'll have an appearance, you know, by Doomfist.
Yes,
causing havoc with the airport security.
Yeah.
Sealing the gauntlet back, all that good stuff.
No, would Baptiste be in this? No. No.
It would just primarily be Orisa, Effie, and Doomfist, and maybe a couple of other Talon agents.
Yeah. Who knows?
But
we'll
what
see
I do,
if it actually happens.
Right. But what I do know is, you know, it's kind of been a busy week for Overwatch on TV. Not only did we have a Late Night with Jimmy Fallon appearance by some of the Overwatch League players with Super and Sinatra making a guest spot there, we also had Robot Chicken doing a run and gag on Overwatch. And it was more tailored around, like, the Overwatch League, per se, and this one was, The Nerd Plays Overwatch. So basically, they had, like, a 4v4 segment, that was, like, Overwatch League coverage by, you know, ESPN. You know, we basically open up and we see, like, a Bastion in Sentry mode, and he's just mowing down everything in sight, only to get, you know, sniped by a Widowmaker. Bastion explodes! And, you know, they go into, like, the post-game interview, which was, like, really over the top, and, of course, they pick, like, the nerdiest guy out of, like, the winners team, and then it kind of, like, goes into the whole, like, nerd stereotype not being, like, what you would expect it to be in competitive, because, like, there's all these athletes that basically turn to Overwatch because of these scholarships that they're getting. And, you know, it kind of just goes into misrepresentation on that front. But, you know, you see all these guys and they're fit just like all of these other athletes in other sports. And, of course, you know, it wouldn't be Robot Chicken without them, you know, drawing the line and, you know, go into, some more not safe for work stuff in regards to, you know, spanking it to select, you know, Overwatch heroes. So, you know, you just have the one guy there, you know, just, you know, playing with himself on stage. I was like, man, they're, I can't say that I'm surprised on this front.
Yeah, no, it was funny. If you've ever seen Robot Chicken, you know the little satire that they do. One thing that did make me laugh was he's like, "Did everyone just get LASIK?" I was just like, okay, I laughed at that one a little, but it was pretty cool. You could obviously tell that Seth Green voiced the main guy because it sounded just like Chris Griffin from the Family Guy.
Well, it is his show, so kind of makes sense.
So it was pretty good. I mean, yeah, it wasn't, oh my god, this is so hilarious, but it's cooler to see Overwatch getting some more mainstream media play, because most of this kind of stuff goes to Fortnite, and it's nice for Overwatch to be included in some of it as well. Yay!
Yay us! Woo!
Yay us!
So not only do we have that going on, but we also got some additional Funko Pops on the way from Funko. And there weren't any set release dates or anything like this, but we got a tease at what is to come ahead. So we got new mini vinyl heroes that are on the way from Funko, which have a number of different heroes. I know there's one for Winston, Reaper, Mercy, Tracer, Rhine, and 5 other heroes. There's also some exclusives based on the store. So I know Target is getting a Leopard Doomfist Funko Pop. There's also a gold variant for Bob, which will be exclusive to Walmart. But there is a 6-inch Bob Funko Pop coming out, as well as a Baptiste one. And of course, Bob comes with the Route 66 sign and the top hat, the important things. And I just love the fact that we have Bob, and then Ash is just nowhere to be seen. So it just shows you, when all is said and done, who the real hero is on that duo.
Oh yeah. Now, so we got Bob, and then you got Gold Bob. Gold Bob is Walmart exclusive, and it's a little too ostentatious. Whatever. It's too flashy for me. I'm not a fan of it. So take the flashiness and the fact that I would need to go to Walmart.
Yeah.
I'm going with the original. Now the OG, the original, so what it is it Futurama. Has anyone ever you've all seen Futurama or know about it? And if you haven't, get
Google
the hell out. There's an episode where Professor Farnsworth creates Earth B, or alternate Earth, in a box. Mm-hmm. And they go through the box and they go into the other side, and it's regular Bender and Gold Bender.
Right.
This is what Bob is. And so Gold Bob can be bite my glorious golden ass. And regular Bob is, can just be his normal self. And nobody liked Golden Bender. Golden Bender was kind of a D-bag. So I imagine Gold Bob is a D-bag. And I would have to go to Walmart for it. So that's just 2 strikes against it. But this Bob... all right, yes, there's Baptiste, there's whatever. I could give 2 craps about this. I'm not buying those. Those don't look cool. But I want a Bob bobblehead.
Yeah.
I want one. So this is going to be day 1. I'm going to purchase this. I might pre-order it if I can. I don't know if I can pre-order Funko Pops. Can you?
I'm sure you can. But we don't know how far out these are. I did like the fact that the Reaper mini vinyl is basically just Reaper, just shrugging.
Oh, that is cool. And let's see it. The Genji one is kind of stupid. His legs are too big for his head. I'm not a fan of that.
And I know Mercy one is her resurrecting on that front.
Yeah. And Diva's winking and blowing bubble gum.
Yeah.
That's creepy. Yeah, I'm just gonna get the Bob one and call it a day. He'll go right next on my mantle when I get a mantle behind me on my glorious empty wall. I'm gonna put it right next to when we go to Star Wars Land, Galaxy's Edge, and I buy all the Hondo paraphernalia is going to go right there.
How upset are you going to be when you realize that there's just not specifically a Hondo area for merchandise?
So one of the Star Wars Galaxy's Edge exclusive Funko Pops is Hondo. So, and when you go on the Millennium Falcon ride, you get introduced to the ride by Hondo.
Mm-hmm.
An animatronic Hondo. And I'm going to take so many pictures. So, yes. I may or may not have a Hondo shrine.
Yeah, everyone else is going to be on the ride, and we're going to be like, where's Ed at? And you're just going to be back there taking like 8,000 pictures of Hondo.
But climbing up and taking selfies with it. Disney employees are trying to chase me away. Be like, fuck you! I'm getting my selfie with Hondo. So
there you go.
That's gonna happen.
I'm not gonna deny it. But anyways, let's see what's going on in Overwatch esports here this past week. So we do have an update in regards to the audience, the average minute audience for the Overwatch League in regards to the grand finals. That was, of course, between the Shock and the Titans. And the viewership this year improved pretty good. So despite going head-to-head with like the NFL and with like ESL 1 New York, the grand finals pulled in 1.12 million average minute audience, which was a 16% jump from the 2018 finals. So in regards to like overall viewership, the AMA this year was at 313k AMA. Which in itself was pretty good, 18% over last year. But, you know, at the end of the day, it's all about the key demographics, which is at 18 to 34, which saw a pretty good jump on that front at 182k AMA, which was up 13% for the grand final. Now, US numbers are looking good. I know they jumped over 40% on that front. And, you know, when you compare the Overwatch League to, like, some of these other traditional sports leagues out there, you know, Overwatch League is the only one that's really growing in that key demo, so that's very enticing for all of those sponsors out there, because that's what they want to look at. They're not necessarily just looking at Twitch views, because, you know, this is our new metric now with esports specifically to Overwatch, now that they're working closer with Nielsen ratings. So, like, seeing how steadily these numbers have been increasing, and just, like, the significant jumps, especially on the US market, has to be good if you were looking to invest in the Overwatch League. So I'm curious to see what sort of endorsements are going to be coming out just due to these numbers. But it's a good sign because, you know, traditional sports, you know, they're still pulling in numbers, but not in our demographic, really.
Yeah. Now, obviously, these numbers and these articles are kind of skewed to make things look better. Yeah, especially the graphic that they sent out, like grand finals, global AMA 1.12, 16% over last year, you know, all that stuff. I actually think internally this was a disappointment. And the reason I say this is, yes, it is up over last year, but the grand finals last year were on ESPN. This year they were on ABC. I expected a bigger jump than that, just for the simple fact that ABC, 100% free for anyone with an antenna. ESPN, you have to pay for.
Mm-hmm.
And I also expected a bigger jump because of the inclusion of China and all of that. Like Chinese teams increasing popularity over there. Yes, it grew 16%. I expected it to grow at least double that. Coming into it, I expected a 30% increase in viewership, if not more. It's great that it was an increase, and they're going to get sponsors left and right because of this. But now they have to grow like that next year, and I don't know if they're going to, because the reason it grew this year is just because it switched over to ABC, and you have those Chinese viewerships. It's probably going to steady off unless things really kind of take off. So it will be interesting, but this is all, I mean, obviously, this is all very good. Like, none of this is bad news. Like you said, it's the only one to grow in the key demographic of like 18 to 34, which no one else is doing, and so on and so forth. So it's great for Overwatch. They're going to get a lot of sponsorship from this. I think just internally they might have thought it would grow a little bit more.
Yeah, I'm really curious to see like what the live viewership is going to be next year. Now that the start times are going to be like all over the place, since we are going to that home and away aspect of being a global league. So the live viewership on Twitch is probably going to see another tick down because of that, just because the start times are going to be around the clock at this point. But I think when you factor in everything, you factor in like the VODs, the other viewership across the globe, the AMA is still going to be treading upwards on that front. But no, I don't think we're going to see as substantial as a jump year to year. But who knows? Like, I feel like a lot of that is just going to boil down to like how well these teams are going to be putting on homestand events now that it's opening up a lot more in 2020.
Yeah, it's going to open up, I think, a lot of things. You're going to get more commercialism out of this. The sky's the limit with this. Let's just be real. The sky's the limit with all of this, and this viewership is going to bring in more people, and a lot of it is taking all of this is kind of taking marketing to a whole new level as well. Because people who are good at marketing and targeting certain audiences, they've never been in this kind of situation before where you have all these other traditional sports teams that go from TV and they're trying to get them into streaming and stuff like that.
Right.
Whereas Overwatch League is doing the exact opposite. They started in streaming, they have that base, and they're trying to get more traditional viewership. So they're going the reverse route. So it's taking some interesting, marketing, and it's working out for them. So it'll be interesting to see what they do next year with the home games and stuff like that, and see what happens in that situation. But overall, things are looking bright.
Absolutely. So, before we jump into a lot of the movement on the Overwatch League side, let's talk about something that is going on right now this week, and that is the Gauntlet, which is the culmination of the 2019 Overwatch Contender season. So this is the event where we have 10 teams across 6 regions. Well, it was initially going in, I should say. But this is basically taking place October 9th through the 13th. In Seoul, Korea, at the OGN Giga Arena, so home of Apex. So we have 6 regions duking it out to be crowned the Gauntlet champions. So basically, the way that this has worked is we got 2 groups, so we got 10 teams split into 2 groups, and this is going to be a double elimination format. So basically, like in the group stage, you're going to have one team being eliminated from both sides, and then they'll reseed into an 8-team double elimination finals bracket, where you have the top seeds of Runaway and ATL Academy waiting to see who they are going to be facing. So, who is competing in this? Well, for starters, you have Runaway, you have ATL Academy. Then in regards to the groups, you have Element Mystic, who got second in Korea. HSL was the sole EU spot, spoilers, they were already eliminated, as we mentioned at the top of the show.
EU.
You have Talon Esports, who were the Pacific champions, and XL2 Academy, who came in as the 3rd seed out of NA. So moving into Group B, you have LGE Hua, who were the only China spot this year. You have Team Envy, who were the 2nd seed out of NA. Genji Esports, the Dynasty Academy team, coming in as the 3rd Korean seed. And then, rounding out Group B, you have the 4th NA seed of the Gladiators Legion. Now, this started last night, and, we started off with nearly an upset. Like, Talon was looking pretty good against Element Mystic, but they couldn't pull off the victory. And then HSL, they got eliminated. They did not take a single map, either against XL2 or Talon Esports, but Advancing from Group A, you have Element, Mystic, and Talon. So now our attention turns to Group B tonight. So I know we have like Envy versus the Legion, we have Genji versus LGE Hiwa, and then we kind of go on from there. But when we're looking at the gauntlet, Ed, basically right now, like, this is a prime spot to like kind of like maybe scout some potential free agents who get picked up for the 2020 season. But I know as a whole, obviously, we're going to be backing our sugar-free horse here. Like we're hoping to see them do good. We know that Gator's playing for ATL Academy, so, that could definitely strengthen their shot at maybe upsetting some of the Korean teams. But all eyes are basically on two teams in particular out of Korea, and that's Element Mystic and Runaway. And, like, I feel like that definitely at times can play into a team like ATL Academy's hands, but who are you looking forward to seeing compete at this event this week?
The team I was looking forward to the most is actually Element Mystic. I know they played, but for one thing and one thing only, Sparkle. Probably the best player we've known to come into the league. Like, yeah, I know Decay last year came in with all this fanfare and stuff like that. Sparkle is better than Decay. So there will be the bidding war for Sparkle because he can play this year. So outside of that, I mean, I know Runaway is like the popular team and fan favorites just because they're Runaway. I don't have a huge interest in them, mainly because I know a majority of their team we won't see in the Overwatch League.
Potentially.
Potentially.
It is worth noting, like, everyone outside of one player on that team is eligible for the 2020 season. But there have been times in the past when their players have rejected Overwatch League contracts in order to stay together as a group. Because we saw that, in prior years before, eventually their prior roster got picked up to represent Vancouver.
Mm-hmm. But outside of the Korea teams, I mean, it's got to be Atlanta. I mean, sugar free. They have Gator on the team, and we know Gator is going to be playing Sigma, and we know Gator's really good at Sigma.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, you have that. So you have that. You have the youngsters from XL2 Academy. I forget their names off the top of my head, but they're like same age as Sugar Free, like 15 years old. One's damage, one support. See if they can pop off. And then you have someone like in Gladiators Legion with the water,
Mm-hmm.
and see if they can pop off. Gen G from Korea is also an interesting one because they have people that people know.
Yeah, Wikid, Wuyal,
and stuff like that. So it's got the name recognition, but it's people like trying to make their way back.
Mm-hmm.
And there's someone who could make a run at it or whatever. It's gonna be a good one. Like LG Hua, it's great that they're there. They're gonna lose. Talent Esports lose. HSL Esports lose. It's basically gonna come down to probably Korea versus Korea with one NA team mixed in there to give them a fighting chance. Like, more than likely, that's what is going to happen. So, yeah, it's going to be an interesting gauntlet. So definitely go check it out.
Yeah, like, if Talon had upset Element Mystic, we'd probably be looking at completely different brackets at this point. But, Talon looked pretty good, and, one of the key players is Pataphan, who a lot of people are going to be familiar with in regards to the Overwatch World Cup, because he's always been on the Thailand team alongside Mickey. So, keep an eye on him. Like, some of the older players in particular that I'm keeping an eye out today, I'd take a look at Sharp out of Team Envy. I don't think they're going to have an issue beating Gladiators Legion, because they, kind of just, squeaked by, being the 4th seed on that front. But XL2 definitely put up a better fight than I was expecting yesterday in regards to Group A. But I'm expecting Envy and Gen.G to come out ahead today in regards to Group B. Gen.G I do have favored in the finals out of Group B to advance. But it's crazy to see like how much Element Mystic has struggled, because it really heralds back to the last Overwatch Contender season when that team in the group stage was very mediocre, but they just turned it on in the playoffs. And then you had a team like Gen.G who had the opposite effect. Gen.G this last season in Contenders Korea, they went 6-1 in the group stage. They looked phenomenal, and then come playoff time, they just ran into a brick wall between both Element Mystic and Runaway. So, not only is there retribution for some of their players trying to get back to the Overwatch League, but there's also that thought of, we're gonna try to, upset you on the bigger stage at this point, so I'm really anxious to see how Gen.G is going to do. But man, part of me just wants to see ATL Academy, the top NA seed, going up against a third Korea seed to see where NA is going to rank at that point. Because there's a lot of discussion now, obviously, with, a lot of mixed rosters in the Overwatch League, a lot of teams moving away from the Korean front, and, that skill gap getting, smaller and smaller as we progress, and, in a meta like this, kind of all bets are off. A lot of teams are either slow to get out of the gate or just have a hard time initiating with their Doomfist player, and we've seen the impact that Sigma players can have, especially with the accretion when it comes to those initiations. So, if your ATL Academy having Gator there and eligible to play is a huge thing for them, and we'll see if that's going to mean that they can make it, a clean run all the way to the finals. I'm hoping it happens.
Yeah, and they have Kodak too, right? On support.
He's who basically relegated himself, essentially.
So he could play.
Right.
And not just sit on the bench, which I'm fine with. They want to play. Atlanta does have a pretty scary team. When you got essentially a star player at each position. You got a star DPS, a star support, star tank.
And that's also a team who time and time again is scrimming against Overwatch League teams.
Yeah, I would scrim against them if I was an Overwatch League team, because they're actually going to give you a run for their money. And yeah, you were talking before about having these mixed rosters,
right?
And how it's working in Overwatch League, and then all I can think of in my head is except Fusion University.
Well, see, they're not Overwatch League ready.
Yes. But we sent over the best we had, and they almost got relegated.
Yeah.
Awkward.
Yeah.
So, but they also kind of decimated that team to make it an all-Korean team, and whatnot. They did stick with Elk and Alarm and on that support line, which is just deadly. But yeah, it's going to be fun. It's going to be interesting. I agree with you in the Group B. I give it to Gen.G and Team Envy. I think Envy could pull the upset over Gen.G though. Possibly, but probably will end up going to Gen.G.
So shifting gears and moving on to the Overwatch League, we have quite a bit of updates. Obviously, we'll get into contract statuses and all of that here in just a little bit. But, we do have staff updates on a couple of different teams that we need to get into. So the Florida Mayhem, they have made some changes to their staff, announcing a departure of one of their assistant general managers, that being Bare Hands. And basically, with this, they have promoted their other assistant GM, who will serve as the new general manager for the 2020 season. So, of course, talking about mixed rosters, Florida underwent, a lot of changes after only picking up one win in the first half of the season, in the 2019 season. And, since then, this team has lost their general manager, now an assistant general manager. And they're looking ahead to the 2020 season where they'll be hosting two events both in Miami and Orlando. Now, initially when this was announced, we didn't have the whole contract statuses, so, the big question was, how much of this roster that Bare Hands was, piecing together out of these Korean talents was going to get blown up into the 2020 season, because, he made a lot of moves in regards to trying to put this team in a position to look better in the long run, and, sure, it took a little bit of time, but, eventually, into stage 4 in order to show some promise when they actually, surpassed their win total from the rest of the season. So it took a little bit of time, but they were looking better. They were looking like they were at least getting closer to being on the right track. And then, fast forward a couple of days, and then, we got some other Florida news. So, kind of seeing, some of the moves that they have made. Are you thinking that Florida is going to stick to that Korean front, or are we going to go back to a more traditional mixed roster after seeing the success that we have had from a team like the Shock this season?
Let's see. They didn't get outside of, so they got rid of Hagapen, Rain, Zephyr, DPI, and Swan. Outside of DPI and Swan, who were obviously the odd men out
right
when they signed with them,
because they were subs.
Yeah, they were just subs. They were subs when they got signed to be subs. You have Karian and Gargoyle, and you have a good DPS lineup in BQB and Saya player. You have your main tank in Fate. Right now, I think they stick with the all-Korean roster, and they just signed some support players. Because of Byram, what we saw of Byram last year, he is not a startable support player. And I did not like Chris last year at all. So I think they need to bring in 2 support players and all that. And Mayhem are not looking that bad. They aren't. Gargoyle, was the, one of the MVPs of Stage 4. Gargoyle and Corey were probably, the 2 biggest, holy crap, where did this come from players.
Right.
And, Gargoyle made, I watched Florida Mayhem to watch Gargoyle. That's crazy.
As opposed to watching them to see how many times they'll get bladed by Genji players.
So I think they stick with all of this. From all accounts, though, what I hear and what I read and kind of read between the lines, people hated Bare Hands. The players. I know it was, Apply, I think, was probably the most drastic. And yes, he's bitter because he got cut by the team. But he's just just heard the news. Florida might now actually be a good team next year. People didn't seem to love Bare Hands. From everything I've seen, I mean, obviously, I do not know the guy. And I know a lot of people, I know people like him. I know he's friends with, the people over at High Noon and stuff like that. And I've, I just don't know, if some of the players don't like him. What was that everyone was replying to him with, or replying to the post with? Sorry, man, or I can't remember what they all were saying. But it just kind of seemed like they're just mocking it. So I don't know. It's another step in the chaos that is the Florida Mayhem.
Yeah, that's why their fan group is the Chaos Crew.
Yeah.
Because that's just the general state of affair in Florida.
I could get behind the Mayhem if they pick up some good support. And really kind of go at it, with Fate and Gargoyle, Saya, BQB, and then get 2 new support, maybe sign another DPS player to come play there. Sign Flower. No, don't sign Flower. Sign Birdring.
I don't expect that to happen.
Who knows?
Yeah,
Who knows what we'll see?
We'll get into the free agents in a bit, but I will say, like, there are a lot of DPS free agents out there who have had a number of inconsistencies in regards to performances year to year, or just last season in particular. But you know, Ed, if you join the Chaos Crew, then they'll get bumped up to double digits, you know, so that would be something they could look forward to on that front. Sorry to our casual OWL fans. You know, we'd like to rag on you.
I would apply to be part of that, and they'd be like,
you know,
I'll pass.
I'm good.
I'm good. We're full.
But you know what?
Yeah.
You guys will always have a Vascon and Chuck E. Cheese. Yeah. So there's that.
Do they even have Chuck E. Cheese down in Florida? I don't know.
They would kind of have to if this is the whole point of a Vascon. I don't know how many there are.
That could be a huge flaw in this whole thing.
I'm pretty
they
sure
want to do a Vascon down there, and they're like, all right, let's go to the closest Chuck E. Cheese. And they're like, there isn't one. We're like, well, this is awesome.
I'm pretty sure there's options for them. But anyways, obviously, Florida's not the only team to be going through some staffing changes, as Boston continues to make moves to their coaching staff. So they announced the release of 2 assistant coaches on their team, that being none other than Shake and Goonba. And they have turned to EU for a new assistant coach. Now they've turned to Angry Titans, in particular their head coach, Ilka, to serve as a new assistant coach for the team. So he'll be working underneath their new head coach for the 2020 season, that being former Florida Mayhem head coach, Mineral. So now we got the whole EU coaching staff for Boston. So, you know, they'll actually have a head coach, unlike most of their other time. So, you know, I can only imagine that's going to work better for them rather than having 3 assistant coaches and then no one really taking the reins, you know, kind of like head on there. But basically, like, you know, Ilka, he's been on a lot of these EU teams. You know, he's been with Windstrike team. He's been on 1 point. He had a tenure with the ATL Academy before, most recently being a head coach for Angry Titans. So his tenure is on some pretty notable teams. So, you know, I have to say, like, you know, we rag on Boston a lot at times, and a lot of it comes down to just the way they go about doing business, you know, but I really like this move. Angry Titans have been one of the EU teams who, despite their changes, you know, this is a team that has had a staying power in that region. Now, unfortunately, at least for EU's case, they were also the team that lost in their own home. And they're the reason why EU only got 1 spot in the gauntlet, which basically went to waste because it was HSL Esports, who were already eliminated without winning a single map. But, you know, Angry Titans were one of the bigger fan bases coming out of EU, and Ilka has done a lot of work on some of these other teams, and he has a good track record. Now, will that mean success in the Overwatch League and for the Boston Uprising? That remains to be seen, but I at least like the changes that they have had, and, you know, hopefully on a newer environment, you know, we'll see some better things coming out of them, because I feel like Mineral got ragged on a lot just because of Florida's performance, and, you know, coming into the league without really much help wasn't really going to bode well for him in the first place. I feel like he was just kind of, like, set up to fail on that front, so hopefully, you know, he'll have more opportunities to showcase what he can do with Boston. But, you know, with Boston, you know, it's kind of a toss-up. It could go either way. Like, they've had moments of greatness, they've had a lot of kind of middle of the road or kind of like forgotten about things that they have done over, you know, the past 2 seasons. But I'm curious to see where they are going to lay out all of the groundwork on this front.
Yeah, this is going to be one of the teams that I think everyone will be keeping a close eye on, because you know the craziest crap is going to happen with this team. Like, outside of Fusions, Blase. No, I'm not even going to include him. Outside Fusions, is there anyone on this team that you can say for certain will be on the team next year? Like, I can't. Like, this is just that team. Like, they have a lot of free agents. They have a lot of places where they need to upgrade. I think they have a certain thing in mind on where they want to go.
Mm-hmm.
And I agree with you. I do like the changes they made. I like Mineral as a coach. He did get a lot of flack for Florida being so bad. I just don't think that was on him as much as it was on the players. Like, he just had a lot of players that just kind of were past their prime.
Yeah, Misfits were past their expiration date at the time when they were picked up.
Yeah, like, you're past your expiration date if the majority of the players go on to coaching right away. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's just they've moved on. They were fun. They're I still love Tavik, but yeah, he got a lot of flack for this. And Angry Titans was a dominant team in EU. They were. So this is a good coaching staff. And their coaching staff of the most diverse roster in Overwatch.
Right.
I mean, you have U.S., Australia, Korea, England, Brazil. Now you got a coach from Greece.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is a very diverse roster, and they're gonna sign. Like, if there's one thing we know for sure with them is they're gonna sign somebody that we've never heard of from a country that's not known for Overwatch.
Yeah, and I feel like with Boston, there's never a worry about, is this team going to make moves? There's a lot of moving parts when it comes to Boston these past 2 seasons, which, is a good and a bad thing when you really want to look into it, but it at least gives you some comfort knowing that if something's not working, they're gonna try to fix it. Now, is that always gonna pan out? No. That's not always going to be the case. But at least they're willing to make changes. And, there are other teams out there, which we'll obviously get into, that are in a completely different situation, knowing what the contract statuses are.
Yep. And the thing is it's not that Boston always puts out a bad team. Like, for the most part, a lot of the times they're fairly competitive. So they're not throwing; they're just trying to figure out what works. And then they're just smart business people up there. They're frustrating as all hell, but they're good business people.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how they're running this. So, you know what? This was a good move. I like it. Good for them. We can move on because, yeah, we don't want to go into free agents too much because we gotta talk about them in a little while.
Right. So in head coach news, we have a new head coach for the Washington Justice, who are once again in the offseason pulling from the Los Angeles Gladiators. So they have signed the former assistant coach for the Gladiators, that being John Galt, who, we've already seen, Justice, they've been making a ton of moves. They completely axed their entire coaching staff this past week. And right now, Galt is looking ahead to BlizzCon. He's serving as the head coach for the Singapore team for the World Cup. And I know, he's been on a number of contenders teams as well, who probably aren't, household names. I'm pretty sure, all of these are out of Australia, if I'm not mistaken, because there's, Dark-Sided, Chaos Theory, Incipients. But, what's important to note is here, he will reunite with another Gladiators alumni in Baolin, who was hired earlier this year as their new GM going into the 2020 season. So, it kind of makes you wonder, are they going to try to pull some other pieces out of the Gladiators side? Because, there are a couple of people that are going to be on the market, and it just kind of makes you scratch your head, I could see this happening. But, Washington, they are trying to start from as clean of a slate as possible, and, we were not surprised in regards to, them just completely starting anew with their coach and staff. And, this is someone who thought, his talents were better off utilized in a head coach position rather than an assistant coach. So, we'll see what he's going to be able to do with this team. And, I have to say, like, obviously we've seen what the role lock has done for the Washington Justice, even with some parts that might not have been ideal at the time. So, there's almost like a new sense of hope for the Justice moving forward. And, this is a team that is going to have a ton of homestands in the 2020 season. So hopefully they'll be able to put their best foot forward going into the third season.
Yeah, no, like, this was a good pickup by them. Jungle wasn't, like, he was part of the whole, like, craziness of the Gladiators, like, with everything going on there. He was just like he was let go, but not because he was bad or anything like that. It's just the organization was going through a lot of changes, and the thing is, he was did a good job, and overall, this is a very well liked move. I don't know if this is a premonition of if they're going to start signing some Gladiators players, but this is like the perfect team. If you're going to go and take over as a head coach somewhere, this is the perfect team to do it, because they cut a lot of the fat. You have a lot of wiggle room where you can go in and make changes, sign players who you want to bring in and who you can make your own.
How much budget memery do you think there's going to be this year for Washington?
Who knows? But, I mean, let's say they go out and sign a big-name free agent. Then everyone's going to be like, oh, crap, Washington. And what do they have to lose? They were a laughingstock for 3 of the 4 stages.
Mm-hmm.
Like, as long as he comes in and has, like, better than bottom 2, they'd consider it an improvement. So, yeah, this is definitely something where it was a good hire, and I'm excited for this team moving forward. This is a team, though, that I'm pretty sure is going to move away from from Korean players.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they do have Ark and Guido, I think, still, but Ark is probably one of the most fluent English speakers from South Korea.
Right.
Period. And Guido, I don't know if they're even going to keep playing Guido, because they do have Sleepy on the team too. So who knows what happens? Like, they could very easily move on from being like a Korean roster. They have moved on. Like, freaking cut all the Koreans outside of Guido and Ark. So it's definitely going to be interesting to see what the Justice do. Spider must be happy.
Oh, I'm sure. Well, he's happy on that front, not so much his actual team.
Yeah. Wait, what's his actual team? Oh, the Dallas Fuel. R.I.P. Dallas Fuel fans.
We'll get into that here in just a minute. So, obviously, we're going to spend a decent amount of time looking at the landscape in regards to the Overwatch League player contract statuses. Mm-hmm. So, before we actually get into that, we did get some details in regards to, like, salaries and how much players are making. Now, we don't have, like, the complete list. Like, we don't know who's the top earner, who's scraping by with the bare minimum, like Boston, but we do know what, like, the average base salary has been, like, how much the average salary, was across the board. So, in 2019, the average player earned $114,000, $97,000 of which came from a base salary, $16,000 from the prize pool, and $1,000 from a sign-in bonus. But the median player salary was $80,000. Now, we know, like, the league minimum is $50,000. Now, there's, of course, going to be teams out there who probably threw a lot of money on the table. Mm-hmm. Like Dallas, for instance. So, some of those numbers could be skewed. I just wish we knew, like, I want to know, like, obviously Sinatra was, like, really the only one who we knew, like, at the time, there was a reason why he was called Mr. 150K. But, after seeing his MVP performance, he can kind of use it as kind of like a bargaining tool, so to speak, or you can have a lot of other players who could, like, pull up their stats and be like, hey, I was comparable to X player, show me the money, so we'll see how that's going to move, ahead here, but, we basically got the league releasing contract statuses of all of their players, so they noted them in one of three categories. They either labeled them as a free agent, they labeled them as someone that was under contract, so that would be someone who's returning for the 2020 season on that team. Or there's also team options, which is basically like the team has an opportunity to re-sign that player, and if not, then they would become an unrestricted free agent. So we have, we know who's on the market in one side, and then on the other side, these are players who could potentially become free agents here within the next month or so. Now, the free agents can basically, start getting signed at this point. And they basically, teams have until November 11th to retain team options before those players become free agents. Now, before we actually go into the list, let's talk about, some interesting notes in regards to some of the labels here. Now, I will say there were a lot of rumors out of the Chengdu Hunters about, players being unhappy, players wanting out of the organization. Maybe part of that was just with them struggling a bit more with the introduction of 222, but all of their players are under contract for this 2020 season, so, I don't know, how much truth there actually was to that. Obviously, there was a lot of talk on social media, over on, the discussion boards about it. And, if you're Dallas, speaking of Spider's team, basically everyone on that roster is under contract for the 2020 season outside of one player. And that is Note. So, really not able to make a whole ton of moves out there. But, there's a lot of notable names that are going to be on the free agent market. There are a couple of teams that have some pretty glaring holes in regards to DPS lines. But as a whole, what were some of the things that kind of, caught you by surprise when it came to some of the options out there for the teams?
All right. For instance, the first one is the Atlanta Reign. They legit right now have one person under contract, and that's Funny Astro. Their two-way player is the only player on the team under contract. Everyone else is a team option. And this is weird to me just for the simple fact that this team's only been around 1 year. Mm-hmm. So they signed basically everyone to a 1-year contract with an option for a second year. That was pretty surprising to me. The Dallas Fuel one, obviously, very surprising. The LA Gladiators is another one. They have 0 people under contract. They have no one. Not one player is under contract. Now, obviously, they have a bunch of people with team options, but they have 3 legit free agents. They have Hydration, Surefour, and Void are all free agents, which are 3 huge free agents. And then I think the last one that really kind of stuck out to me is the New York Excelsior. Mm-hmm. I expected a lot of the team to be under contract. There are 2 exceptions. They have basically their whole team under contract, except for 2. Flower, who we know is a free agent now.
Yeah, he was released.
Yeah, sure, fine. But Meko, why is Meko the one person a free agent and everyone else is under contract? Meko is legit a good player. So that's interesting. The Fusion, they're going to blow that team up. They're 100% going to blow that team up.
That's an interesting one, too, because, we know Boombox is under contract, so then it's the question of, I mean, we've obviously talked a lot about Alarm turning 18. Like, is this gonna be a situation where they're gonna handcuff Alarm? Like, is he gonna come in and play when he turns of age? Is Boombox just going to start right out of the gate? Like, there's so many questions. Like, to me, that's like one of the weirder ones because like we thought like it was a surefire bet Alarm's just going to get promoted to their main roster. But then we also know like Elk is looking for other opportunities as well. So it's just like, well, you have this Fusion University support duo who were heralded as like the best support duo, potentially like even globally at the time at the Contenders level, and now like we don't even know if we're actually going to get to see that particular duo working together alongside one another on a main roster team at this point.
Right? And like and not even just Boombox. Like Carpe is a free agent, EQO is a free agent. Let's see here. Neptuno is a free agent. Sado's a free agent. Snillo's a free agent. Like, it's not like they have a team option and they can keep them if they want. No, like half their team could be like, screw you, I'm out. Like, and I would not be surprised if they do that. Like, that team was so defeated last year. So defeated. Like, you could just see it on their faces that they just didn't want to play. And Carpe and EQO easily going to get signed elsewhere. Like, if they don't both come back, those two are going to be the snatched up. Like, if they're not already snatched up, they're going to be on a team. Right. Sado, maybe. Like, Neptuno, possibly. It's just, like, right now, like, if you're a team like Philadelphia and you see all these problems, you could very much so blow it up and just rebuild the roster and not cost you money. Because, like, it's really, you just have Boombox and Poco are the only ones on your team. Now, granted, Poco, I know people love Poco. I don't consider Poco that good of a flex tank. He's flashy, but I don't think he's that good. But he's serviceable. He is. Boombox is fine, but you could probably trade him and bring up Alarm, keep Elk. You get Alarm and Elk on that team. You bring in a new DPS duo, and you get, like, I hate to say this, but they sign they bring in Fusion University. Just do that. Like, yeah, if Dallas is looking to get rid of people, which I think they are, you could probably get Zachary off of them just by taking on the contract. You go out and you sign Who Are You? You get Alarm. You sign Alarm. You sign Elk, and then you figure out your tank line. You know what I mean? Like, Fusion, they do that, they become instantly a fan favorite. They do. Because, like, people love Fusion University. Now, granted, this is not what's going to happen, but that would be really cool if they brought up, like, OG Fusion University.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Beast Halo got brought in. You know what I mean? Like, so, it's Philadelphia is a team to keep an eye on.
Yeah, like I'm so conflicted with Philadelphia, primarily just because that's never really been a team that has, like, been counted out at really any time. They're always just kind of lingering. Like, they're always competitive. They're always in the fight. They're always in a playoff run-in. While they may not, like, always be at the top of the pack, they're always at least mentioned. They're not an afterthought. So it's a more curious case with them as opposed to some of the other teams that are more clear cut. Like, yes, we absolutely need to make some changes. Now, I think the best thing to do is kind of like just take it team by team and talk about, like, some of the players who were released over the past week, and there were a lot of players. And, like, want to say like 5 or 6 teams at this point who have started to announce some releases. So I'll just go in like alphabetical order in regards to the teams. So let's start with Florida, since we were talking about them earlier. So Florida, they released 2 of their support players in Hagopen and Rain. One of those players was starting a majority of the season. One of them was a backup. They released their off-tank in Zephyr. Really no surprise there. I mean, Gargoyle, as we mentioned, has been like one of the primary reasons to watch the Mayhem play. Because he definitely turned that team around in Stage 4. They also released Swan, who was a backup main tank behind Fate, as well as one of their substitute DPS in DPI. So, really the only one that I was kind of like interested by was the fact that, Hagopen was on this list. I feel like Hagopen definitely played more up this past season. Like, he looked a lot better than what he did in Season 1, so that was really the only one that was a surprise on that front. But, there were other teams out there that had some more surprising releases. And I think when it comes to it, like, London has probably been the most interesting case so far in regards to their releases. Now, they have released 3 players at this point, 2 of which are on their DPS line. So they released Guard, they released Birdring, and then they also released Nuss, who is one of their main support players. Now, I know, looking back, Ed, there were a lot of times when we would see, like, Quartermain coming in for a little bit. But, Birdring, there's been a lot of talk about, like, how he could potentially be retiring. He basically benched himself in the playoffs, and Guard was the one filling in on that front. And then, we see all these notable DPS free agents, and now everyone's like, oh, is Carpe going to land on London? Or are they going to try to make a move for Flower? What's going to go on that front? But these are some pretty notable names coming out of London that are now suddenly on the market. But, like, how are you feeling about Birdring right now? Because there's a discussion to be had here about some of these big-name DPS players who have either had inconsistent performances or have just kind of buckled under the pressure where maybe going into last season, their stock value would have been through the roof, that now suddenly are kind of... I'm trying to think how I should describe this. The value just quite isn't what it used to be. There's a lot of falling off at this point, and you would have to think, like, Birdring and Carpe are both kind of in the same discussion at this point on that front.
I mean, to some degree, yes. Birdring was always the redheaded stepchild of the DPS duo in London.
Well, that's because Prophet can just play everything.
Yeah, there was Prophet, and then there's Birdring. I am a firm believer that Carpe is going to be signing with the Spitfire.
Mm-hmm.
I think that just makes the most sense, and that is the scariest DPS duo in the league if that happens. But Birdring, he's gonna stay in the Overwatch League. He will find a team, because the thing is it's out there, and he probably just let the pressure get to him. Like, it's one of those things, and you kind of saw it, but like, he came in after winning the championship and just had a decline from that. And it's not that he was even that bad. It's just that a lot of the heroes he played didn't fit that certain meta. I mean, how many of these, like Zarya or Baguette players or DPS players who played them just are not suited to play those roles? And Birdring just was one of them. And because he's not good on Doomfist, they basically were like, okay, well, we're going to use you sparingly. Who knows what the meta will be when Season 3 comes around, but there are plenty of teams who could use him. Right. Not only even as a starter, but as a backup. Like, Birdring would be a stellar back. Like, Birdring on the Florida Mayhem makes all the sense in the world. Like you have BQB, you have Saya player, and you have Birdring as your backup DPS. That is a formidable DPS lineup. Like that is sure for decay hydration level DPS lineup. And that is where his role, I think, kind of goes to it. And we saw that stuff like this is it works. Like, you can't just have 2 DPS and call it a day. You need to have 3, and Birdring is definitely a third type of DPS player. Look at the 2 teams in the finals this year. You have the Shock, who used 4 DPS. You have the Titans, who granted only used Sam and Sue and Haxel in the finals, but they used everything from Stitch to Hureg to, you know what I mean? Like, they used all their DPS to build up to that, and it works for them. Gone are the days of we're just gonna have the 2 on each position and call it a day and not rotate out. So now you have to start looking at depth of teams, and Birdring brings the experience and skill to add to the depth. Like, Birdring to me is kind of on the same level as Striker. Like, very skilled, may not play every map, but will bring that bench spot up a level. So Birdring, that team will be lucky to have Birdring on the team. The other guys the Spitfire got rid of, maybe not so much. Guard was not good. I'll just say that right now. Guard was their best Sombra player.
Like he
was
did
not
great.
A good Sombra
he
player.
did good initially, but there was a pretty drastic fall off on that front. Now, the next team to make a release was New York, who released Flower. And like, looking back, there are teams out there who they turn to someone, they sign him early, and they look to like cultivate young talent out there. We kind of saw that with the Shock when it came to like Sinatra and Super getting signed when they were 17. It was the same case with Flower and a couple of other players. But like out of that field, like really Flower was probably the bust out of that lot. Flower came in, he had a lot of hype behind him because of his World Cup performance yesteryear, and, it got a lot of people excited, and then he competed with XL2 Academy. He played basically second fiddle to Nene. Didn't really perform all that well at that level, gets called up to the main roster, comes in, does kind of okay. Like, really, the best Flower that we saw was anytime he had Nano Boost on Pharah. Like, that was when we got Flower. Anytime outside of that, it was a lot of just okay play. He's a player that needs a lot of tools at his disposal in order for him to put his best foot forward. And to me, like, I don't know if Flower is going to be back in the Overwatch League this next season. He's a player that strikes me as someone who is going to potentially get another opportunity at that, Path to Pro level, but he's going to have to earn his spot back after how he fared. After, New York spent so much time on him trying to, bring him up at this point.
Yeah, I think he'll sign with another Overwatch League team. And the reason I think he will is because of one person. Rascal. Rascal went on 2 different teams, off of 2 different teams, goes on to the 3rd team and becomes amazing. I think the talent is there with Flower. Like, I truly believe that. And we've seen flashes of that. Mm-hmm. I think the talent is there, so someone will take the chance on him. Maybe not what they would have a year or 2 ago, but they'll take a chance on him and sign him to a reasonable contract and give it like what they'll do is they'll sign him to a 2-year contract, the 1 year team option, and see how he does. I think that is more likely. He is the kind of player that would fit someone like maybe Boston. Nah, not Boston. That's too expensive for them. Uh, but like, but like maybe like a Toronto or something like that. I don't know where it could be, but I think he'll be in the league next year.
Don't think it'd be Toronto if they're keeping Mangachu.
Are they?
I think they will. That's the heart and soul of that team.
Fair. So I want to ask you something because I think there's no real. Are there other people dropped
from New York? No.
Okay.
Because everyone else is under contract outside of Meko, who there's no doubt in my mind that Meko is going to sign again with New York. Like, I don't think you break them up.
I mean, the thing is maybe he doesn't want to be there. Like, that's also something you have to take into account. Like, he's a free agent. He's allowed to go out and just talk to anyone, and people can woo him as best they can. And maybe he falls for it. I don't know. Maybe someone like the Seoul Dynasty, like, that's the thing. The Seoul Dynasty are the biggest wild card in this free agency period. Because, I mean, let's be real. Like, who do they have? They have a bunch of people under contract, but they have, Jaehong, Toby, Zunba, free agents.
Mm-hmm.
Fleda's a team option. So you have all these other players, but like, how enticing is it to go to him and be like, okay, you get to go back and play in Korea in front of your home crowd?
See,
that's the biggest wild card in all of free agency is the fact that we can make Seoul your home team.
I feel like this year, I expect Seoul to stay more in-house and promote from Gen G than go out and sign in free agents. Now, that being said, they're still... Like, I'm not too concerned with their off-tank position with Michel. Michel was, like, an absolute stud throughout the majority of last season. Zunba they might do away with at this point. But I don't think we're at the point right now where Seoul is in a position to become the super team. Like, I feel like we're gonna have to get situated a little bit with the whole home and away thing, and then they'll go on that. But, with half of their roster still being under contract or having a team option, they're not in the best position to do that sort of restructuring. But that being said, like, I would not be surprised. Like, Meko does have options, but, it's kind of, like, hard to break up something when it's been working out. Granted, playoffs are still kind of like another discussion, but, we saw New York turn things around more so this past season on that front, at least in the season playoffs. But, regardless of that, when it comes to off-tanks, in particular, like, that's probably going to be the most sought-after position. So there's a lot of bargaining power on that front. But as a player, he's not one to strike me as someone who is going to move away from a comfort zone at this point.
Yeah,
which would be in New York.
You're just like, and here's, like, let's be real. I hate to say this, and people are going to be like, Ed, what are you talking about? You're effing crazy.
Yes.
What if New York doesn't want them back? Like, let's be real. Like, gone are the days of having diva specialists as your off tank, because before pulled pork, it was diva. Basically, that's it. Like, your off tank played diva. That's what it was. So you had diva specialists. But now you're throwing in Sigma, you're throwing in Roadhog, you're throwing in Zarya, you're throwing in you're throwing all of them in there. And maybe they're just like, you know what? Maybe we throw Nene into our off-tank role. Because
Possibility.
that's the thing is Nene was an off tank before he switched over to DPS. Maybe they love him being on that, and they're just going to use that. And then they're like, well, now we can play Libero and SBB and just be fine and not have to give Meko this gigantic contract just to stay.
Yeah, there's also a lot of talk about, like, was it Pine that was, like, wanting to swap roles to support? I guess when, like,
God.
one of their players in particular was looking at swapping roles.
So I hadn't heard that, but can you imagine Pine on like Mercy? Like
I see him more as, like, the team's funny Astro and Lucio.
yeah. But you know what I mean? Like we talk about how maybe Meko might go other places. Maybe New York just doesn't want to re-sign him. So it will be interesting. I can't wait. I think it's November 7th is when team options are required to be in. And then that's when the chaos will really begin because we only have a portion of the free agents.
Right.
So we won't hear about free agent because no team is going to be like, hey, let's sign these free agents before the rest of the free agents are announced.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to like people expected all this chaos to ensue. Not gonna happen.
That's been
That's
more on the release front. I mean, we're only like halfway through the list so far. So looking at the Shock, they basically kept their entire roster outside of their one free agent, who was Nevix. So Nevix is released. Coming from a championship roster, that's a great tool to just get to sign to another team. Like, there's no doubt in my mind Nevix is gonna land on another team. Whether it's a starting position, probably not, but, he's a relevant enough backup option, so that's pretty much a given at this point. Now, Toronto has definitely made a lot of moves. They made a pretty surprising move in releasing Gods, who, was their off-tank. That was kind of a bittersweet moment, especially, like, having followed Gods in his journey in Path to Pro for such a long time. But then, they also released I'm 37, they released Sharik, as well as Aid, so, they got rid of 2 tanks, they got rid of a damage dealer, they got rid of a support player. I want to say their other support they put on a 2-way contract.
Yeah, Roki, they put on a 2-way contract.
So, there's a potential chance, like, maybe they're going to be looking... That tells me they're going to be looking for a new main support player. At that point.
Yeah, I mean, Toronto is basically gutting their team at this point. Because Yakupon is probably not their answer at tank. Otherwise, they wouldn't have signed Gods and Sharik.
Mm-hmm.
They traded away Envy. So they have no other off-tank. Like, they're going to have to go out and sign a new tank duo. Now, the question is... do they go non-Korean? Because
that's the thing. Like, no one on that team is under contract, which is what makes this one confusing.
Yeah, but I feel like if the other players were gone, we would have heard. They're not going to announce these people are leaving, but we're not going to tell you if these other people are leaving at the same time. So I would assume that Mangachu and Logix will be on the team. Neko, I feel, will be on the team. He was pretty good support last year. Ivy, possibly. And Yakpun, maybe, but as backups. Like, I feel they're gonna kind of redo all of Toronto Defiance. It just didn't work out for them last year. So I feel some big changes in store for Toronto as well.
And you kind of got a feel for I'm37. He speed ran the Path to Pro, get picked up after like a game or two.
Do you think he gets signed?
No. I don't think so. There's definitely part of me that feels like he was definitely signed too early. He got his opportunity in the Overwatch League. Initially he did okay, but then, like, ended up having issues with, the role that they selected for him. They swapped him to another role. didn't really work out all that well. But it just comes to show, like, I don't think you could fast track people like that. You know, you can't just go from, you know, Path to Pro playing on a team for like one day and then have enough tape on that player to be like, okay, like we see enough in this player to just sign him to an Overwatch League contract. You know, it's different than, say, picking up someone off like ladder or open division and then working with them as they are not playing on the field, you know? Like, for instance, like London, who have Krillin, you know, he's still on their roster, at this point. You know, so, like, for I'm37, like, he came in, he played immediately, and I don't want to say, like, he shit the bed initially, because that wasn't the case, but, like, it was pretty obvious that he struggled, pretty mightily, so that's gonna be another player who's probably gonna return to the Path to Pro. Whether or not he's going to be able to earn a spot back, I'm conflicted on that front. But, you know, maybe that exposure on the Overwatch League will do him some good to at least make some more enticing offers in regards to some of the Tier 2 teams out there. Because, you know, having, like, stage presence or just, you know, that sort of experience can definitely go a long way in Tier 2.
Yeah, now I will say the Overwatch League is basically 1-for-1 on awesome, we're going to pull them out of nowhere signings. Because there's really been two in the Overwatch League of, all right, nobody knows, we're just going to pull them all out of a hat and sign them. And that's I'm37 and Senior and Jonak.
Mm-hmm.
One was an MVP, one's out of the league. So they're 1-for-1. So people are going to be trying this till the cows come home. Like, every sports organization will do this. You are always going to be trying to sign the next big thing and take them early so other people can't get to them. I mean, look at some of these high-end, like, college recruits in football that get scholarship offers at 14.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you're going on potential. They saw the potential of IM37. It just didn't pan out right away. But I agree. He's not going to sign with the team. He'll probably sign with the contenders team somewhere. And go from there. I'm surprised he actually wasn't signed to done a two-way contract with Toronto. Like, that seemed like a no-brainer to me. So I don't know if they just didn't offer it to him or he turned it down.
Mm-hmm. So the only other team out there that made moves this past week was Washington Justice, who released 4 of their players. So they released their former tank line, of, you know, Jonas and Sansom, as well as their DPS player, Otto, and one of their support players in Heianu. So, no surprise, you know, they have Ellie Vote, they have Lol Sish, who, you know, were unfortunately not able to get their visas in time, couldn't compete in the Overwatch League this past season. So, Jonas and Sansom being outdoor, really no surprise on that front. But what I will say is, like, when it comes to turnaround of play, out of the two, Sansom definitely had more stock value coming out of this season. Like, no one was really talking about him, but he had a very drastic turnaround in Stage 4. You know, Jonas, you know, he couldn't feed as much on Orisa in Double Barrier. I mean, he looked better just due to that. But, you know, the Wizard Yawn experiment is over with in Washington. And, you know, there's a lot of young talent on this team, so the potential is going to be there, and we'll see where they go from this point on. But, you know, Otto being gone, not too much of a surprise. You really didn't play a whole lot on that front. But, you know, you had to be feeling better moving forward if you were a Washington fan, knowing that, okay, yes, this is a bit of a restructure, but you have a new tank duo who has been competing with one another for a long time, you have childhood friends, essentially, so you're gonna have this level of chemistry that, something like that you just can't throw away and you can't discredit, because, like, really no other duo out there has been together as long as these two players in particular. And, I'm really pulling for them, because there's a lot of potential with their new tank line, and I feel like it's definitely going to be taking them places in the new season.
Yeah, no, it definitely is. The Washington Justice are, like we talked about this, are set up pretty good. I can't remember, and you may know this, did Sleepy post something about looking for a team?
He is a free agent. That doesn't mean, like, he can't re-sign with the team, but, like, on that front, Arc was in the same spot as Sleepy. So both of them are free agents right now. But, there's been so many, like, LFT, I'm still under contract, but, I'm fielding offers, all of that, so just because of how the three classifications are at this point. But yeah. I like both of those players. It's just a question of how much value is it really? Like, I feel like Arc brings probably more value across the board, but, like, both of these players are better at one particular support over the others, and, I don't know how much stock value you want to put on that front.
Yeah, like, it's one of those things where I get Sleepy being gone, because, like, Sleepy didn't even beat out a lot of the time his other flex support player, in Guido. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. The Washington Justice are probably gonna go full rebuild around and start with, obviously, Corey. He's not going anywhere, and then Ellie, Elevote, and Lullish as their tanks, and then they can just basically do whatever the hell they like. Like, they can do anything. Like, they could be like, you know what, screw you, we're signing Jae Hong and Toby. Like, I don't see that happening, but they could. So they're just basically starting over from scratch.
Right.
They everyone thought that Wizard Young was going to be like the second coming of Christ or whatever, and carry
is it a 9,000 IQ, the Justice
to the promised land, and then all of a sudden it was just literally just a shit show. So they are basically gutting it, and you see this from teams all the time in every sport. You get rid of the coach, you get rid of the players, and then you rebuild. That's where they're at. They have their core pieces, and they're going to rebuild on top of that. So this is a team where I expect those three players. I don't expect anyone else on the team to be back. I don't expect Stratus, Guido, Arc, Sleepy to be back. Stratus, possibly, but I don't see him as a starter. I don't think he's starting material.
I feel like Stratus, for meme value alone, is worth keeping on the roster. I mean, he's a persona. Like, you need someone like that on your roster. And, there's just something about him paired, with Corey that, it's hard to have, like, another parallel to that duo in particular.
Yeah. So it's time will tell with them, but they're gonna be like, they'll probably have as new of a lineup as the Boston Uprising do next season.
Right.
So keep your eye out for everything. But yeah, I think that's all that happened.
That's all the releases.
All the releases.
I quickly want to go over a couple of the other notable free agents really quick. And I mean, there's a laundry list of free agents, so we're not going to go through all of them. But ones that we didn't note earlier. So like Aim God is a free agent. Potentially that will be someone that Washington will be looking at. Note, as we mentioned, is the only Dallas player not under contract, so he's a free agent. Which is weird because, like, they go out, they make a move, they swap RCK for Note, and now Dallas doesn't have an off-tank player, so, well, we'll see what happens on that front. Both Fraggy and Bishu are free agents. I don't know if any one like either of them would be necessarily like a starter at this point, but you know, Bijou is someone that has a lot of stock value just due to him being a translator. He's an in-game leader. And you know he's not afraid to go to a two-way contract because you know he did help out Legion in the past year. But for me, like when I look at the free agents, obviously you know the biggest one, out of a lot is probably Surefour for the Gladiators. Like I don't imagine the Gladiators just being done with either Hydration or Surefour, but like with everything going on behind the scenes with the Gladiators and Sentinel, I honestly don't know where people are going to end up. You know, because obviously, like, a lot of the coaches were already posting, like, LFT things while all of that was going on, and that was, like, even going back to September, so who knows on that front. But you also have players like Hotba, who is a free agent right now for the Charge, who, you know, we question, like, what his viability would be going into a meta where he wouldn't be able to flex as much just due to the fact that only be able to play tank, but he's still been an absolute force, so I am not expecting Hoppa to have any issues finding a new team at this point. And like Gamzu as well is like another notable tank option who is a free agent coming out of Shanghai. So there's a lot of good players out there that are on the list, but man, does it hurt me seeing Jaehan and Toby on that front. But you know, neither one seem to have weight, like neither one of them are going to be retiring, you know. So I don't know if they're going to move to another team or what the case is going to be. But I'm definitely going to be paying close attention to what Jaehan is going to do in the future.
Yeah, I don't see Jaehan and Toby leaving. I think those are two obvious bringbacks. As far as the tank situation in free agents, some of the most notable, how do I put this without, the most notable not free agents is the Houston tank line.
Mm-hmm.
They literally have all their tanks under contract still, and I'm just like, ooh, that sucks to be you. Because like they would, like, I think Note would be amazing on that team. I think Note and Muma on that team would be legit scary. And, you know, I'm interested to see if Dallas is able to bring back Note. Or if it's too much. We just don't know what's going to happen, because if the rumors are true, Dallas is just spending an absurd amount on contracts.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, the free agents, I'm going to go out on a limb, and I'm saying Surefour is not returning to the Gladiators.
Okay.
I don't think he wants to deal with the uncertainty on if he'll play or if he'll not. Like, if I was to pick a team that Surefour would sign with, I think Washington Justice is the team. I think Surefour and Corey would make a fun DPS lineup. And I think gone are the days of you needing to have, like, okay, we got one hit scan, we don't need that anymore.
Right.
Especially with Surefour. Surefour can legit play whatever the hell you want.
Yeah, and Surefour is the type of player who is actually willing to play the other roles. He might not be the best at some of these secondary roles, but he's not having an issue playing it. Like, he'll do whatever is best for the team.
Yeah, there's a few people out there in the Overwatch League like that. Like, Libero is the first one that comes to mind. Rascal is another one. Like, they're all in a different mold, and I think Surefour would be great for the Justice.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if I think the Justice would pony up the money for him, that remains to be seen. It would make sense. You know, you have the GM is from the Gladiators, the head coach is from the Gladiators. They'll probably go after Surefour, but I don't know if they'll be able to afford him. But yeah, there's a lot of legit free agents out there.
And potentially more on the way after teams weigh
options. A lot more, I think, on the way. Like, I think a lot of these teams are just going to be cutting dead weight.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Paris is a team I could definitely, like, Shadowburn probably gone.
Do you feel like Paris is going to stick to the EU front? Like,
I do think they will. And the thing is it's not like there's not talent in EU. It's just they chose the
it's just
wrong
they don't
EU
stay
talent.
in the tournaments long enough for you to realize it.
Yeah, exactly. You know, we'll see what happens in the World Cup. Like Danye, probably one of their best DPS players this year on that team. Sad to say,
Right.
made a name for himself in the World Cup. So yeah, you know, they'll stick with the EU thing, but I think there's gonna be a lot of turnover there.
I can definitely see that. But yeah, we'll obviously have a clearer look here in the weeks ahead as teams continue to weigh options. Things are definitely going to open up a lot more over the course of the next month. But with that being said, I know we are nearing that 2 hour mark. So let's go ahead, let's close out the show for tonight. So if you guys want to help us out, obviously the best thing to do is to let us know how we're doing. Give us feedback over on iTunes. In the case of iTunes reviews, we're always looking for ways to improve the show. If you would like to find other Overwatch-related content, we do have Overwatch Recall, which is our Overwatch podcast directory, which is available on our website. And it covers, basically like Overwatch, Overwatch League, Path to Pro, Fantasy Overwatch League, even though, it's kind of on hiatus at this point. But every Sunday we do the weekly recall, which has a listing of all the prior week's episodes. So definitely keep up to date with all of that over on the Recall Twitter at OW Recall. Now, if you guys would like to support our network, of course, we have a couple of different options. We do stream a couple of shows each week on Twitch, so any sort of support there, whether it is a Twitch Prime sub or a Tier 1 sub, is greatly appreciated. And of course, we do also have our Patreon page at patreon.com/OWL Network. We have tiers starting at just $1 a month, so any support you can throw our way, we greatly appreciate. So you too can join the likes of our master and above patrons, Blazin' Bob, Brendan, JC, Owl, and Kesha in helping our network grow. Now, Ed, of course, we are gearing up for BlizzCon. And, with that, if you guys follow us on social media, you already know what we're going to announce, and that is our involvement in this year's Con Before the Storm. So, Con Before the Storm, they partnered with Wowhead this year for this Blizzard community event, and you and I will both be participating in the Overwatch panel. So, this year I will be moderating the panel, and on this panel we will have our good friend / your fantasy OWL rival Ramses, who, also on our network for OWL by the numbers and, push the point. So he'll be on there with us, as well as D from the Omnic Weekly and Blevins from High Noon. And we have one more panelist, TBA, at this point. But I have to say, looking back, Ed, my only disappointment out of this whole ordeal has been the fact that they initially invited you to the Discord, and I wanted to keep playing, the card of, well, I don't know, are you involved? Because, this whole time, I was I had already known for a couple of days prior to this. I was like, man, how long can we drag this out? Just hanging over your head. And you kept asking me. And then, you were like, well, I'm just gonna put on my own panel, we'll just...
Right? I was 100% set. If, I wasn't picked, I'm gonna do the Biodome. We're gonna build the dome within the dome and not invite any of you. I was gonna hold a podcasters roundtable where we just got drunk and talked to each other in the audience during your podcasters panel out of spite.
Mm-hmm. And then you probably got thrown out.
It would have been glorious. Yes, we all know Blizzard's a fan of kicking people out of things. Went there.
Yeah.
But no, it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm super excited about this. Um, you know, I don't think they know what they're getting themselves into with me.
Here's the thing. So, for those that are going to be out in Anaheim, the event is on Halloween. The Overwatch panel is kind of like in the middle of the pack here this year. We're not the late night one. They saved that for WoW Classic, but the Overwatch panel is at 7:30 and it will go until 8:15. So we got 45 minutes. Now, I don't know about you, Ed, but I mean, just between the Ramses, you and I, that's no problem. So
we go long.
The formatting is going to be kind of intriguing. I got to figure out what I'm going to do on that front, but I'm looking forward to it. And like I've collaborated with everyone that has been announced on this panel, so there's a lot of familiarness on this front. So I can't wait for it. It's going to be a good time to engage with the community. If you guys are going to BlizzCon, if you're going to be in the Anaheim area, I hope to see you guys out there. Yeah, it should be another good year. And I'm looking forward to it. So we'll hopefully everything goes smooth sailing on that front. But I'm looking forward to it. And for the most part, like, this is gonna be our first time meeting one another. Like, I've met Blevins at a prior BlizzCon, but outside of that, like, I know this is your first BlizzCon. Ramses hasn't been to BlizzCon. I'm pretty sure D was there last year, but I didn't get to see him. Like, he said he watched the panel. I just didn't know him at the time. So it'll be nice catching up with him in person. So should be an all-around good night. And, we don't have to start at, like, 10:15, so, I won't be completely hammered by the time the panel goes on.
I probably will. Do what I do.
Yeah, but for more information on the World of Podcast panels at this year's Con Before the Storm, I will post a link in our show notes. And if you're not able to make it out there, we will have the panel available to download on our RSS feeds. So you can definitely check it out after the fact. But now with that out of the way, of course, next Monday, we got a pretty big episode for Overwatch League Network. Our episode 100, guys. You do not want to miss it. We got some surprises in store for next week's episode, so we hope to see you out there on that front. Which, we got some other podcast news on that front saved for Monday, so definitely tune in then. But Ed, why don't you go ahead and let our listeners know how they can get a hold of us over on the social media and all that good stuff.
All right. Well, you can reach us through email, and that's at hndoverwatch@gmail.com. We are on Twitter, and that's at hndoverwatch. We do have a website, and that's owlonshow.com. So go over there, check out all our videos, articles, all that fun bajazzle. We do have a YouTube, youtube.com/Overwatch League Network. So go over there, check out any of the videos Spider puts out or anything like that, and all the VODs from our podcasts. We are on Discord, and that's at discord.me/OWLnshow, which I'm for certain will be active and talkative every time there's a new release in the form of roster move. So come join us there. We are streaming presently live on Twitch, and that's at twitch.tv/OWLnshow. We are a Twitch affiliate, so come help support the show by subscribing to our channel and earn our network emoticon. We do stream pretty regularly, and that's Overwatch League Network, airs Mondays at 7 p.m. Pacific. OWL by the numbers is Tuesdays at 6 p.m. Pacific, but it's on hiatus until the Overwatch League season comes back. We do have this show, Heroes Never Die, which is our variety Overwatch show, which airs Wednesdays at 5 p.m. Pacific. And then host streams, when available, run on a flex schedule, so be sure to follow us to be notified when we go live. As Totem had said, we do have a Patreon at patreon.com/OWL Network. So come over there, help us support us even further. You can contact me personally on Twitter, and that's at @EdinarOverwatch. So come over there, follow me. Don't take anything I tweet serious. Usually I'm drunk. Like drunk Harry Potter. The drunk Harry Potter tweet storm. we had all that fun stuff. But Totem, where can they find you?
Well, I'm also on Twitter at TumblyDrunkCTR, where, this month, all month, you could see me tweet in about 31 Days of Halloween and what I'm watching. So stay tuned for more on that front. But with that being said, guys, I do want to thank you again for joining us tonight on another episode of Heroes Never Die. This has been episode number 181. I've been your host, Tumbly Drunk, joined, as always, by my co-host, Edinar, and we look forward to seeing you guys back for our 100th OWL Network episode on Monday. Take care, and have a good night.
Have a good one.